What's up, guys? This is Ray, Apple Valley Astrologer. So today is the 28th of February 2017, and I have elaborated on the weekly transits for this week, as well as the eclipse, and the associations and influences of Mercury being in Pisces, because me being influenced by Mercury and being mercurial first and foremost, I'm going to project what I know and share what my experiences, as well as knowledge, with Mercury is, because it's my key planet, my chart ruler. If you ever want to know what your chart ruler is and you're unaware, you're more than welcome to email me at rayryanhearts@gmail.com to inquire about some astro reports that you can order. Anyway, so I'm going to now go over what the Pisces season is. I understand that I covered a lot of the symbolism with Neptune and Pisces in particular when I was going into the Mercury and Pisces video, but that was a lot geared towards more of the mental or psychological manifestations as opposed to the entire collective themes or the influences that the archetype subscribes to, and Pisces and Neptune in particular being the symbol of the collective, the greater whole picture kind of thing. I felt that my my elaborations were unfinished. That, and I'm experiencing another manifestation of Pisces season, and I haven't talked about it yet, and I'm compelled to. So that'll likely go into this as well. So, again, due to Pisces influences, I have made at least a list, a script, more or less, to go off of. So if anybody hasn't noticed, which I'm sure somebody has noticed, or at least people around you have noticed, but they should not be talking. This is definitely the kettle calling the pot black in this case. Even people who are abnormally affected or have abnormal effects, I should say, to typical transit themes like I do, will still feel some of the Piscean influence in the way that it is described. For example, the inebriation state and/or the influences of using drugs or self-medicating or just getting fucked up for fun doesn't escape anyone. Even people who are sober will be escaping in their minds more or less, or through some sort of creative outlet. Or if they start to do that during the second decan of Pisces, which I'll get into, then they just cry. And I experience transits, transit themes at a few days ahead of everyone. So as we're finishing or transitioning into a new phase of anything, I'm in the process, while everybody's going through the peaks of it, I'm in the process of going through the transition to the next one. And so I'm completely out of sync with everybody else. But yeah, that being said, I need to throw this away. I live in, obviously, Washington State, where weed is legal, and I feel like I'm my brother at this point, who could give Cheech and Chong a run for their money, pretty much, if they're both alive still. But anyway, so I'm gonna go over just some basic, vague, because that's associated with Pisces and Neptune, themes, or just a concept of what Pisces season represents, and then I'm going to go into the decans. If you're not familiar with what decans are, I'll just give you kind of a debrief on it. I'm not going to go thoroughly into it. I'm just going to explain what each decan planet ruler is, kind of give you a really short debrief. We're shooting for short here, but if I meander, I apologize. For the decans. Okay, so Pisces season starts on the 19th of February and goes to the 20th of March. It has 3 decans, so every single sign in particular takes up 30 degrees on the astrological wheel. Because we're always evolving and progressing, and specifically with it being a mutable sign, that the evolution and progressing is substantially magnified. We have 3 flavors or 3 phases of each archetype. Those are called decans. So I'll skip to the decans right now, actually. So between February 19th to the 29th, so that we're still into the first decan until tomorrow. That means the last day or so I've been already feeling the second decan, and that's definitely evident. I'm not going to go into that. If you follow me on Facebook and you go look at my Facebook wall, a lot of the subject matter in which I obsessively, because I have that OCD thing, obsessively post that are similar in theme, reflect my mentality at the time and usually my behavior. So the decan for the first phase of Pisces is Neptune times 2. So it's Pisces. A lot of Pisces. So that could be taken as it magnifying the worst facets of Pisces. Us having that Pisces eclipse, it would generate in this fashion this time around. But first and foremost, everything's just really foggy and murky. I know that everybody says that about Neptune and everybody says that about Pisces, but the first week of Pisces season is the worst of it all. And I think from looking at like an evolutionary standpoint, from the the relation between the conscious being and the macrocosm, is that Aquarius season is so electrically charged and causes stress responses and causes people to act manic and neurotic. That's essentially, the archetype of Aquarius to a T. That when someone is panicking or having a panic attack or something like that, where they're freaking out, and they just randomly faint, and they're in a comatose state until their body rebalances itself, that is the real life kind of scenario or metaphor for when we transition collectively from Aquarius season to Pisces season. You were manic, out of control. And I don't say you being you, because if this didn't apply to you, then lucky for you, you have certain things in your natal chart, your birth chart, that combat those kinds of themes. But as a stereotype or a typical standard thing, Aquarius season makes people more neurotic or manic. Psychotic sometimes even, especially with Aries being the ruler of Uranus for these last 9 years. It's the more psychotic thing has been more apparent as opposed to the neurotic. So, and if you're not familiar with what neurotic or anything is, somebody who's really drunk and inebriated and has no idea what you're talking about and has no idea what you're saying to them, and you don't even, you can't, it's like you start holding up fingers, like how many fingers am I holding up, and they don't know. that kind of detachment with cognition is what it means. So Neptune, it's an overdose of Neptune, likely. Yeah, I already said that. Then we go into the next decan, which will start on the 1st of March, and then go until the 10th of March. And I think that's funny, because I don't actually know my father's chart. He will never give it to me, because he thinks astrology is not real or whatever. And he's too wrapped up in his opinions and views, or too detached from anything from everybody else, to humor any kind of concepts that are outside of his core beliefs. So it's funny when I start going over some of these things that at least I can figure out from like a generational standpoint, like what his chart was, and figure out where his Mars and stuff and everything is. But once I realize that he's in the decan associated with Cancer, the Moon and Neptune, kind of gives me another layer to him. And Cancer Moon decans essentially are either going to, they can go one or two ways, because Neptune's obviously imbalanced and exaggerated. They either can use empathy they'll project empathy onto the world, or they'll completely close themselves off and swallow their feelings and emotions. That's the good or bad, or pros or cons with this manifestation. So Neptune, when Neptune in the Cancer thing is more of a emotional kind of clarity, being able to empathize things you have not emphasized before, it's essentially intuitive feelings, or your intuition and your emotional feelings collaborating together to come to a census. Regardless if that census is going to be positive or negative, it depends on aspects in your own chart as well as transits going on. So, if we kind of think back to, actually, I'll just keep going with the decans. So then the final decan is the 11th of March through the 20th, right before we obviously go into Aries season. So this is the most imbalanced one, because I also explained in one of my previous videos the imbalance or combative kind of associations with mixing a lot of water and fire in transit energy. The water obviously wants to be more in tune, go with the flow and feel and do feelings, while fire is more brash, impulsive, irrational. And if you stick an Aries and a Pisces in the same room and tell them that they have to work together on something, if you were to imagine that kind of scenario playing out, that would explain this decan in particular. So a lot of either what people would say during this time is going to be completely contradictory to what they do, or what they do is going to be completely contradictory to what they say. Yeah, vice versa, obviously. And also, people aren't going to even though Mercury will be out of Pisces on the 13th, so towards throughout partial parts of this this last decan phase, we're going to have Mercury transition into Aries. And that goes a lot with the mind influencing our physiological world, or the material, mundane facets of everything. Because Mercury is the origin, the source. And so when it goes into Mercury mentality, when Mercury goes into Aries mentality, that explains the energies going at heads and defying the natural behavior of the Piscean archetype. So it'll be intense, polarizing, imbalanced, and it begins to collaborate with cardinal fire influences before Aries season. So we're obviously always going through the evolutionary kinds of concepts. When you think about all the decans and how they assimilate together, the first decan, which is the double dose of Neptune, is comatose. The detachment from reality is way intense. And yeah, I already went into that. So then, during that detachment with reality, you do a lot of inner reflection, because that's all you really can do. If you in reality aren't having a relationship right now, you're going to be preoccupied with what's going on internally. That's self-explanatory. So, with the Pisces solar eclipse happening at the start of this decan, essentially, it's going to intensify any kind of intuitive, psychic insight. So that goes back to what I said in the eclipse video, how this is going to be more sociological or psychological and spiritual, as opposed to environmental or mundane kind of themes like my last Pisces solar eclipse video was. And then when we go into the moon and Neptune decan, now the things that your Neptune is telling you, essentially, it's just supposed to be an archetype of your soul, or a facet anyway. Your Neptune is your subconscious giving you signs or telling you things intuitively through your dreams, through imagining things, daydreaming, or just you picking up on things that you didn't see before. Now it's going to try to connect those signs, those themes, those ideations of intuition to your moon, which is your emotional complex, as well as the definitive tie between your physical body, the ascendant, and your soul. So this is where the collaboration comes into it, and this is where you accept or potentially reject the the information or the knowledge that Neptune is trying to give you. That is either beyond typical reality limitations and or it's completely internal to you, or, so that could be emotional, psychological, or spiritual. So, depending on, again, things in your chart and the evolutionary progress within your own individuation, and I'm talking about that from like a reincarnation spiritual sense as well as a physiological sense, would depend on what kind of renewal or what kind of potential refresh or restart that you would be experiencing or fated more or less to experience. Because if you resist, then it doesn't necessarily mean that you will experience these things. It's just going to cause illness on your behalf. And speaking of illness, since I went over the deacons, the pathology with Mercury and Pisces is obviously very weak. I talked about that in the Mercury and Pisces video. So illness is very apparent during this time frame. This is like the peak or the end of flu season or something. I'm not entirely sure about the seasons for that because, again, everything affects me differently and I don't remember that kind of stuff because it's not important to me. But me in particular right now, especially if Aquarius season was very stressful, which it was this time, I will, once I go into my comatose state for the first decan of the Pisces season, Neptune season, I wake up and I'm sick. So, the 12th house is associated with Pisces, which has to do with hospitals, chronic illness, terminal, lifelong conditions, or any kind of illness or weaknesses that arise due to the own destructive behavior or habitual actions of you, the self. So if you're a destructive person, which I, being a Plutonian, struggle with that because all Plutonians on some level are destructive, either to themselves or to the facets in which their Plutonian signature subscribes to, aka what house it's in. So I have my Plutonian signature in the 6th house of health and daily habits and work and service. So I'm destructive towards my health, and I'm also potentially destructive towards my career, and well, not my career, but my work, which I can totally understand. But anyway, so Pisces, the ruler of Neptune in modern, and Jupiter in medieval ancient astrology, I find it important to recognize distinctive qualities of Jupiter as well as Neptune to understand similarities. So one thing that they do both have in common is intangible, uncontainable, relentless, and infectious. And when I say infectious, it has any kind of generational aspects in particular that would trigger maybe epidemics or illnesses are always going to have Jupiter and Neptune associated. So, again, this is where people start getting the flu and colds and stuff. And the fact that I've been cooped up in my office for over a week now means, and now I'm randomly sick as I woke up, and I actually didn't even eat for a couple days. And yes, that's the self-destructive stuff. I know I shouldn't have done that. I understand. There's no way that I could have been contaminated from outside sources. So this is clearly all psychosomatic from stresses I've been dealing with in my own life. I'm working through it, though. So, my Mercury and Pisces video described the psychological and mental effects of Pisces, so if you're interested in the influence of that, go to my transit section and go to my channel and look on my channel and look at the Mercury and Pisces video, and the picture across it says Mercury and Pisces with the Pisces symbol in blue, because blue is attributed to Pisces. A good visual or metaphor, I guess, for Pisces is the blue sky. It's endless. It's intangible, and you're not always entirely sure what the hell you're looking at up there. Cloud-wise, foreign object-wise, anything. In fact, people that are highly influenced with Pisces, in particular, are the ones that usually think that UFOs are up there and they've seen them and everything. I'm not trying to insult anybody who is a Pisces archetype and or who somebody who has these kinds of ideations or experiences. Let's go with that. Experiences. But all I'm saying is that apparently you're the only people that are seeing it. Which also explains why nobody believes you. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm keep going on. So mundane and sociological influences I also covered thoroughly in my Pisces solar eclipse video. I already mentioned that video, as well as my latest transit video, which was the weekly horoscope. So if you go to my YouTube channel, which I now have a YouTube URL, they let me have one now. So it's just Ray Reinhardt's Apple Valley Astrologer, all one word, after the hash with YouTube. And you go, the first section says horoscopes and readings. Go to the weekly horoscope folder. Go watch the one that's for February 26th through March 4th. That explains a lot of the sociological and mundane effects of the Pisces season underway so far. I obviously will go over it every week, but you know. Anyway, Pisces is all about acceptance and understanding the importance of the whole and collective. The Pisces archetype and personality is limited to narrow individual point of views, perspectives. And that's what causes the fog. Because they either intend to seek out ways to see the greater whole, and like looking through, being able to understand the whole picture. It's like looking at one puzzle piece and expecting that person to be able to guess what the whole picture looks like, or what the whole picture is, from that one piece. But Pisces will stare at that piece forever and try to, I don't know, telekinesis, pull that freaking picture out of its ass or something by staring at that one piece. And that's, while everybody else is just looking, I'm like, dude, you've been staring at that piece forever. You're not going to get anywhere. Let's just start maybe putting the puzzle together. They're going to go, no, I got this, you know, today. I have been having insomnia issues because I'm the polarity of what is typical, and since Neptune phase is supposed to be a time when people are lethargic, dreamy, you know, in a fantasy world, or possibly sleeping a lot, I did the exact opposite. I extended Aquarius season for me. So I finally hit the floor because I have not been getting that much sleep. Yeah. Yeah, so what causes what many call the Neptunian fog, either because Pisces' perspective tries to see beyond what it processes in reality, or because they actually do see things the collective cannot. So, just from things that I know about the archetypes, the more psychic attuned or inclined kind of visionary Pisces would likely be the ones that are more there's a chance for people who have psychic signatures to be born in any of the decans. But I would say more often than not, those who are born towards the Neptune-Mars decan, which is the last of it, the 11th through the 20th, are going to have either stronger signatures or stronger effects of that psychic manifestation. And anyway, so I'll just reference I'm just going to reference a couple books. I have so many books, and I know people like me to share my book references, and it's just so much easier to just read it off. And yeah, I'm going to give myself a break, okay? Mercury Pisces kicked my ass. Literally. I'm sick. Anyway, so traditional correspondence with the archetype of Pisces, early spring, Thursday, because in ancient astrology, them being aligned with Jupiter is Thursday. The number 7 is associated with the archetype of Pisces, and the physiological is feet, lymphatic systems, and pituitary glands. Birthstones are amethyst and moonstone. Crystals are bloodstone, aquamarine, blue lace agate, calcite, fluorite, labradorite, turquoise, smithsonite, and sunstones. The associations are drama and addiction. That's where the drug addict archetype is attributed from. Usually if you watch like some of those intervention shows or whatever like that, usually the catalyst or the reason why the person self-medicates and has addictive tendencies is because of traumatic events that happened in their early adolescence and their early stages of life, which is what Neptune is associated with. If you look at it from like an evolutionary standpoint on the wheel, before the ascendant is born, the subconscious existence of the soul being infused to the physical archetype while it's in the womb is represented by the 12th house. So the predispositioned kind of psychic signatures, spiritual signatures, have their own personality, which is the draconic, by the way, your draconic chart, is then basically put into the body of the ascendant. And the ascendant and all the physical limitations therein have their own protocols, their own limitations of natural law, and their own plan. It is the soul's job to go with the flow, that's the Neptunian Pisces concept, and to assimilate with that plan and start whispering in the ear of the ascendant, that's a metaphorical sense, of where they're fucking up and how they're supposed to be not a manifestation of themselves as the highest of importance, but that this is actually a transition and a phase throughout that soul's evolution. So, before the ascendant develops its mercurial cognition, its emotional concept, empathic abilities, its connections to the world, the physiological world, its preferences, its autonomy, the perceptions that are absorbed are directly perceived by the soul, essentially. That's also why, interestingly enough, children in particular are the ones that likely see paranormal phenomenon manifestations, because even quantum physics has now proven, or stated the theory that energy just can't dissipate, and there's been different kinds of radiology or like radio frequency experiments to correlate the nervous system having some sort of aura or conductor, which is our body, that makes energy, and that energy just doesn't dissipate. So when kids in particular, especially ones that would be psychically in tune, start talking about like imaginary friends and stuff, I'm not saying that all cases of kids having imaginary friends is paranormal, but it's more often than not either a manifestation of parts of their soul, if they're more of an old soul or an evolved soul, or them having some sort of direct correspondence or discussion with lingering consciousness of somebody who was alive once, which is paranormal activity. The metal associated with this is tin. Colors are soft green, pure white, purple, violet, or silver. It's also supposed to be blue. Animals, fish, dolphins, and all sea life, and all sea mammals. Foods, figs, fruit, vegetables that are high in water. It's important for Pisces to drink water. If you're a Pisces and you don't drink water, you're going to have severe health problems. Just saying. Then herbs, golden seal, echinacea, eyebright, mugwort, Irish moss, and angelica. I'm definitely going to be having some echinacea and golden seal tea here soon. I'm going to go make some because I need it. Trees, willow, figs, hazelnut, and plants are water lily, seaweed, ferns, moss, irises, orchids, and violets. Places that are associated. So there are geographical areas that are basically aligned with the coordinates of where the planets intersect with locations on the Earth. These places will have a Piscean kind of atmosphere, either within the culture, the sociological dynamics, or perhaps even the aesthetics. Portugal, especially in Lipson. Sahara, Scandinavia, France, especially in Normandy. Spain, North America, especially in Vermont and Hollywood. Alexandria, Warsaw, Jerusalem, watery places of all kinds, especially marshes, the sea of where spring flows, fish ponds, places where water flow breeds, watermills, houses near water, wells or pump houses, dams, moats, old hermitages. So, currently, in recent times, not only are we obviously having some Neptune issues, I can make a whole video on that, and I have, but a dam has just been compromised in California due to flooding. That is directly attributed because of stressful aspects to Neptune. So, just had to throw that in there. Yeah, other than that, I have one of these cute little books. Honestly, if you're either just into astrology for yourself, which most people are, these books are cute. I only got this because it was on the clearance shelf, and of course I'm going to buy anything astrology related. I've kind of skimmed through these books, and I take everything with a grain of salt, because they fixate too much on Pisces being the only sign that influences someone. And that's not true. Thought I'd read something cute from this. Like, I would never ever take compatibility seriously from a generalized book. It's way beyond that. In fact, synastry charts are the only way that you're going to ever know if you have compatible issues with the compatibility with someone. And so many people contact me about that, and all I have to say is that if you just started dating them, unless you just like to blow money or you're really into astrology and your relationships with them, then get one. But the synastry doesn't tell you all the cute shit. It tells you these are the things that are going to work good for you. These are the things that you're going to have to find a compromise on. And this is the undoing that's going to essentially destroy this relationship if you do not compromise on said things. It gives you a realistic picture. So anybody who's looking for something like that, especially with this Pisces vibe going on, you are looking for synastry for the wrong reason. Go to another astrologer or something. I don't know. Blue is the color of Pisces, the color of the morning of the sky that we see when awakening, the ocean depths in the middle of the night. With blue as their imagination, there's room for everything, even for the clouds that will eventually fade away, even for thoughts big and small that crop up and disappear into little darting fish. Blue like infinite space, which they need so much of it. Blue like the universe in which they float. It is a mystical and dreamlike color like their nature. In Egypt, it was the color of introspection and infinite good luck and charm in the afterlife. For the ancient Greek and Romans, blue is also symphonous with diversity and danger because it was the color of barbarians and foreigners. That's the manifestation of Jupiter, because Jupiter is the house of foreign travel. Yeah. Pisces people might like this. The flowers that are associated with the deacons. Lilies are associated through the 20th of February to the 29th for their elegance and fragrance. And then for the second deacon, March 1st to the 10th, Mosodus, forget-me-nots. It's supposed to be symbolizing promise of love and faithfulness. And the flower that wards off anxieties of the heart. I should have been putting those all over my room yesterday. Sorry. March 11th to the 20th, the cornflower, or the Sinus sagetum, goddess flower. Always dressed in blue, he died out of love. Flora turned him into a flower. If Pisces places this flower under their pillow, they will have the power to talk in their dreams to those they love. That's cute. That's why I get this book. If you ever want like a serious reference book to reference, just associations like I just did, I have to say, out of every single astrology book I've ever owned, and I own quite a bit, this one that you can actually buy in stores, that is widely available, is the best freaking book I've ever bought. I have books that are heavy enough to break backs over there. They're supposed to be astrological encyclopedias. This book I reference more often than not than any of the other ones I have. And it's also because I like pictures, there's a lot of visuals. And I love that it's easy to find all the associations on the side, and it's got just diagrams. It's so cool. This book is definitely recommended for noobs, people who are just fans of astrology, or anybody who's trying to teach themselves how to be an effective astrologer. I'm gonna go now. I've reached that time where I need to stop. If anybody's interested in the... Well, see, I was gonna reference some medical astrology effects of Pisces, which I can, off the top of my head. But I do like to, review my books. It's just, my OCD thing. And I still have yet to find my medical astrology book. Thank you, Neptune season. I use that book all the time. In fact, I used it for a client chart, diagnostic chart, just at the beginning of February. And I found all the notes for that said client's diagnostic chart, but the book that the notes were in is missing. And that is so screwed up. Bermuda Triangle status has been achieved in this room, or it's obviously not in this room. I've torn this room apart. I don't know. So, I can reference some medical astrology associations, especially since I'm vicariously living it right now. But I'll only do it if people ask. Because I've already extended this way too long, and I know that I'll meander. So, I'm gonna go enjoy my Pisces season and try out my new strain of weed. Blueberry. Perfect fitting for the blue Pisces theme.
Is there someone there who cares for God-forsaken souls and God-forsaken man? Is there someone there who cares?